In this episode, Bart and I talk about Wissenschaftsbarometer, or Science Barometer. This annual survey in Germany and Switzerland is about the public's trust in science and scientists. Afterwards, we talk about a similar survey in the USA, published by the Pew Foundation a few months earlier. For each survey, we picked a couple of questions and interpret the answers. As always, you will find a summary and links to the sources in the show notes. Science plays a major role in overcoming the crises of the 21st century. To make informed decisions, policymakers and the electorate need to understand the relevant scientific evidence. To communicate this evidence, we need academia to engage with society. At the same time, academia needs to improve its own practices in order to deliver the best evidence and expertise possible. This podcast features science communicators and discusses science topics that directly impact society as a whole. We talk about research and publication practices, academia as a workplace, and science careers. By the way, even if your podcast app places advertisements, we do not receive any income from these ads. We only receive support through Patreon, merchandise sales, and direct donations. Learn more about how to support us on www.scienceforprogress.eu. If you are already supporting us, for example by being a patron, thank you very much for the support. My co-host is Bart Görten. I am your host Dennis Eckmeyer, and this is episode 40 of Science for Societal Progress. Hey Bart.
Hey Dennis. Oh,
how you doing?
I was faster.
All right. Things are good, actually. I got into contact with the famous German science YouTuber Mighty Nguyen-Kim, and we've been working together. So I'm a guest author, writing scripts for her. The first one was already published. I wrote a script, and she adopted it to her style, right? And she made a wonderful, beautiful video out of it about brain-machine interfaces.
I saw it and I read the comments on Twitter that said that it was all dictated by the scientific elite, which actually places you directly into the scientific elite because you dictated it.
Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
We'll leave it at that. Yeah, congrats, man.
Well, thanks.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was quite surreal. I mean, the video got 166,000 views within the first 5 days, which is enormous. I think I never had anything with this kind of reach.
Much better than writing a paper. I guess I could say that 100 people read my papers. Like really read it. Not just skim through it and say like, something about insect behavior.
Okay, so how are you doing? How's your week?
Fantastic.
Everybody needs to know that Bart started this meeting ranting about how awful his week was. So if you don't want to talk about it now, it's fine, Bart.
I want to share this part of it. Dear scientists listening, that you don't have your own professorship. Don't teach. Never teach. Nobody gives a shit about teaching. And doing that will only ruin your career. But out there are a lot of professors that will tell you like, no, that's a very important skill that you have to learn. Because they don't want to fucking teach.
That reminds me that just a year ago, you talked very differently. You said it's your way of recruiting students.
I think that what really makes me bitter about it is the disrespect that you get if you do it. From the people that actually profit from you doing it. Don't be fooled by the things people tell you. At the end, it's always how much money did you get from grant institutions, how many papers did you write, and that's it. And if you start to be a very good teacher, you're not going to be competitive against the people who are not.
Right, doesn't give you a competitive edge. Yeah, that's sad, because it's actually an important job that we have in academia, is to teach. So let us jump right in, talking about questions and answers from the Science Barometer survey in Germany. And the first question we picked is, how much do you trust? And there are several answers. How much do you trust scientists in academia? How much do you trust science and research? Then how much do you trust scientists in industry? How much do you trust industry? How much do you trust media? And how much do you trust politicians or politics? Scientists at universities and public research institutes have the most trust of all of these groups, which is
56%.
Yeah.
Which is not amazing, I would say.
No, 56% is not so great. 35% are undecided, which probably means that for them it depends on the topic. There are some topics where there is doubt being spread about scientists, talking about climate change, for example, talking about homeopathy, talking about GMOs, talking about glyphosate, these kind of things. So I think people who are critical and skeptical there might be undecided because they might trust scientists more in one area than they do in a different one.
What I found surprising, at least, is the difference between research and development in general versus research and development by state-funded institutions.
Yeah, it's interesting. Fewer people have trust in the abstract.
No, I mean, you often ask these, so these things are never asked in this succession. Mm-hmm. So the surveyed people will get these questions basically randomized in a way, or at least randomized in each subtopic. And what you get is affirmation by the other question. So because you have the overall question, which is, if you look at it, just between science and development of the industry and science and development on state-funded institutions, which has the highest trust, and the lowest trust of those three was with the industry. Of this missing part of trust, in contrast to state-funded things, you get an affirmation for your first question. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, and I understand.
It's like a negative control in a way. That means that actually the trust is quite high for us and it's quite stable. Question though is 56% is already, I think it's quite remarkable, but it's still like in absolute terms, it's quite low. If we take into account what you said, maybe these are people that have strong opinions about a highly debated topic, which are not in accord with the scientific opinion. Then we're at 91%, which is, this is okay. This is, I think.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
That would be awesome. But that would be like massaging the numbers to our benefit.
Yes, yeah. I don't want to do that. I'm just saying that this would be
on the other hand,
an explanation for the large amount of people who are undecided in whether they trust them or not, because they might have trust issues in some areas and not in others. Other people might have chosen this because they honestly don't know what they should think.
My favorite question about the survey was where they asked the people if they would want to see how scientists work. And actually, 64% of the people answered with yes. They would.
Right, yeah.
And
even those who don't trust, right?
Yeah. If it's now to disprove your science or to say, I just want to see how it works.
Yeah. There was a discussion on Twitter, right? Somebody suggested to have a Twitch, which is live streaming.
Out of the lab.
Well, a Twitch channel for science communication, right? And one of the suggestions was, oh yeah, right, you could show them how you make a gel. And I was like, yeah, you can show them how the gel is running for 4 hours in the electrophoresis.
I would watch that if I could get like also the shit talk the people do. Basically like on the computer games, when they start cussing out the other guy that never can hear it. And then like Professor A is going into the lab and saying like, okay, we need to make this gel because Professor B is working on that and we gotta stop this beep.
This
and everybody's like,
yeah,
we do that. Yeah, that guy is full of shit. I gotta stop that. Gonna take his bluster. Yeah. And then everybody walks away. I would watch that. But just like normal scientists going like, and then I pipette these things in there, and chances are about like 20% that this experiment is going to work, but I still have to do it because I want this degree. Uh, I start the experiment now. Now I can walk away and read another 15 papers about like people who pulled that off that seem to be much smarter than me.
Exactly. So
I'm not sure.
actually, the work of scientists is very boring to watch most of the time.
Yeah, like if it's more like House of Cards with professors, I'll watch it.
Yeah.
On the other hand, what I really thought about is that these open days that we have in Germany very often, I guess they are everywhere in the world, where people can come and visit the unis, see the labs, etc. The Night of Science in Göttingen is awesomely visited by people. Like you can't get a parking space near our lab for 20 kilometers. Like everybody is there. Like they come from the countryside. Families take their kids to the astrophysics building, to the physics shows, to all these places. And I think this works very well. I think or like the person that you had around from Pint of Science. I think this actually plays into the same thing. Even so you can't see how they work, at least there is interest there. I guess there are people that never are going to be interested in one of these things. But I think most are.
Well, I don't know if it's most, but it's a lot.
I think for most people, science is still the subject from high school.
Yeah.
And not the cool thing that you can do.
Right.
Take all these really, really simple science shows on cable channels in Germany, which basically don't explain much, but enough so that people watch it.
Right. Yeah, but they get things wrong and stuff. It's not a good show, but people still watch it. That's true.
I read the study and I read also the extensional data where we actually can see that who's interested in science and who's not interested in science after different peer groups like political orientation. But all in all, I found it rather uplifting as a study. There is some parts that shine lights on problems in our communication to the general public. But all in all, I would say we are pretty good in the communication already. Not that there's no room for improvement, there is.
Yeah.
But it's actually, the public is interested. It's more to us to keep them on board and find new ways to communicate with them.
Right. Actually, one of the things that I hear are going on.
And what I think that we really have to stress here is papers are sufficient for that. This whole
so we should actually not do science communication.
This whole science communication stuff is just bullshit. Nobody.
Yeah, just do the academic communication and see what happens.
Exactly. Right? We are already fine. Like people love our papers. That's it. I mean, there is some leeches out there that try to make a living out of this nonsense, but we have to cut the crap and go back to papers.
That's fine with me. I can write reviews instead of, as long as I get paid.
No, obviously the public is not going to read our papers.
So how much do you agree the public is sufficiently involved in the decision about science and research? So it's like 51% who are clearly or more or less saying, no, we should have more say in this.
That's actually quite an interesting question, also from the perspective of the Fit for Responsible Research and Innovation topic that we had with Maxi Gottschling and the Uni Göttingen's team on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in their new video, they talk about how you should integrate stakeholders of the society into your research. That means if you're, for example, researching in agriculture, you should get more farmers involved to actually hear what they have to say about that topic.
I mean, if you say the people who should be involved are farmers, I would say, okay, most farmers have studied agricultural science. They understand the topics and understand the language of scientists, and the other way around. If you say everybody who eats food should be involved somehow, then this might be difficult. And also, what kind of decisions are they talking about?
some decisions have direct impact on the society. For example, when Germany cut the state benefits for turning your solar electricity into, or pushing your electricity into the general net, a lot of solar companies had to close down, because before that you got a guaranteed price by the state for every kilowatt that you produced on your roof. This was based on a study that said there's no need for more financial stimulation to that sector. Now, this, I think, wasn't the best decision that we took for political, not for scientific reasons. The science behind it was sound, but the political ramifications of this scientific endeavor were negative for us. In that case, I mean, it might have been smarter to get more stakeholders on board and ask them for their opinion. Maybe companies that were invested in solar energy could have told them that if this is the impulse that we give into society, we will lose jobs and we can't sustain our production.
But isn't that what lobbying is for? I mean, some industries seem to be better at protecting their workers.
Volkswagen.
Volkswagen, the coal mining industry, or the power industry. Right.
And since I followed my first news show when I was like 7 years old, the argument always was, if we do that, if we go innovate that sector, if we, introduce this law, if we save this environment, we lose jobs. We lose jobs all the time. It's devastating for the individual what's going to happen. It should be social, and we should keep all of our members functioning in society. So that means we have to retrain them, but we all have to retrain all the time.
Yeah, it's becoming more and more normal that people have several jobs during their lifetimes.
And people actually view that still as problematic. But coming back to the question of the participation of the public in scientific questions, the other side of this medallion is, are people actually interested in questions that are of direct impact to the society without a long latency? Like at the moment, it's environment and renewable powers. But I guess the number of people that are really strongly interested in does Bartgurten's insects walk more left than right is rather small. And if I would have to take away 5 minutes from everybody in Germany to say, like, don't you think I should do that? I think most of them would say, well, I think you should leave me alone. I need these 5 minutes for something else.
Yeah, I think so. I think what they're thinking of are bigger issues, like general directions or how big the budget in general should be.
What I like is participation is always good. If you can get people involved in science, that's always helpful.
Yeah.
What I'm against is in chickening out of the responsibilities you're given by your election. By saying like, maybe we give this vote back to the people. Maybe the people should decide what kind of science we do.
Yeah.
No, we elected you as experts to actually make that decision for us. If
Right.
you then opt, instead of like getting a real scientist into the scientific ministry, at the moment, there is not even somebody in the Ministry of Education that actually has some sort of academic backdrop. Federal Minister of Education is professional hotelier, professional training and tourism in the hotel of her parents. This is how much you're actually valued as a scientist by your government in Germany. I would totally have been fine with a teacher, like a high school teacher, and say like, maybe our problems are less in the scientific sector, but more in schools. Fair enough. It's the Ministry of Education and Science. So if you want to focus on the educational part, get a teacher.
Let me just throw in some information if you're interested in becoming a supporter. In the past, we only made the extended version of our interviews and Bart and Dennis talks available for patrons who would pledge more than $6 a month. I now changed this rule, and everybody who is a patron is now able to enjoy these additional episodes that I made. So if you're interested in learning about these episodes, you can go to www.patreon.com/sci4progress, where older extended versions are already available to the public, so you can have a listen, and maybe you'd like to support us, and you'll get immediate access to those extended episodes. But now, back to our conversation. If we're talking about what we're taking out of this whole thing after having talked about a couple of these questions, I think the main thing that sticks with me is that, yes, most people like science and say they believe in science, etc., but this Wissenschaftsbarometer, this survey, doesn't really capture the ways they don't. If they say, yes, we are worried about conflict of interest, this could mean a lot of things. You have people who disagree with scientific consensus in some areas and agree with scientific consensus in other areas. And I'm not sure if I would call that a science-positive population, or if it's just, okay, there's enough science out there that there's enough that people can agree with, but they still choose to not agree with things that they don't like. Talking about scientific facts and expert opinions.
So what about other countries? Is the overall situation there the same?
So they did a very similar survey, maybe even the same one because it has the same name. It must be the same one in Switzerland, but obviously Switzerland is culturally not so far from Germany. The differences in the answers weren't really significant. There were maybe like 2 to 4% responses different. And I don't think that's worth a discussion. I don't think that 2 to 4%, that's probably within the uncertainty.
Yeah, I guess also the situation for scientists in Switzerland and Germany are basically the same, like on larger scales.
I think they have more money in Switzerland.
That might be true, but otherwise.
In 2019, there was another study by Pew Research Center. Also a pretty big survey. I picked a couple of answers. The link to the whole thing will be in the show notes on our website. What I find interesting in the US is that there is a trend towards more confidence that scientists would act in the public interest. They compare scientists to other professions, like people in the military or medical scientists or school principals or religious leaders, etc. And none of them change a lot between several years from 2016 to 2019. But for the scientists, there has been a trend where the numbers always go up. I think that's interesting. About 4 in 10 say environmental researchers care about the public's best interest all or most of the time, so not even half.
But if it's about fair and accurate information, only 35% of the people believe that most or all health specialists and environmental research scientists provide that.
Yeah, that's really sad.
The majority in the US have a positive view of environmental research scientists.
Ah, okay, yeah. So they have a 57% positive view for them, and then they say, but they're only 35% honest.
Yeah. Isn't that weird?
About it's really weird. I think so. I mean, I'm just guessing here, but there's one argument that seems to be very pervasive, that seems to speak to the conservative view of the world, which is that scientists need money for their work, so they come up with stuff so that they can get more funding.
Huh.
Like, they're overstating the severity of climate change and the reasons for climate change in order to be important and to get more money to do more work, because otherwise they would maybe lose their jobs. That appears to be something that they accept. You know, oh, they're under this financial pressure to do this, but that doesn't make them bad people, maybe. But that's something that I've encountered very often.
Interestingly enough, the next question is if they would admit to mistakes they made or be transparent about potential conflicts of interest with industry groups, and there only 17 to 14% of them believe that everybody would be admitting to their mistakes or clarifying potential conflicts.
Right. Yes. That would also fit with the idea that they're saying, oh, yeah, they're just people and they need money, so they will not be transparent and they will say anything to get more money, so they also won't admit if they made a mistake.
That's quite a different opinion to the Central European surveys. They never asked specifically about environmental scientists, but...
Which I think is a downside. This is why I find this American one so interesting, because they had a couple of very specific questions that tell you something about where a residual mistrust in science or scientists could come from, and this is a good example. So there are specific topics where they are overly critical of the science and the people who are doing the science, and that doesn't show up in the Wissenschaftsbarometer.
Yeah, but I asked myself if we would have asked after specific subgroups like pharmacological research scientists or environmental or climate change research scientists, if that would be significantly different from the overall research situation.
I think so. I think you would see differences between the different people. Like, you could, for example, look at if they think environmental researchers are to be believed, do they think the same of, let's say, genetics researchers? These kind of things you could look at.
It's interesting, though, how different scientific topics seemingly decide over how much the people believe in them, in the scientists supporting that topic. So seemingly genes are the evil boogeyman of Europe, but this doesn't seem to be an important thing in the US.
They don't seem to specifically look at genetics.
But that alone is already
gene editing.
The interesting part, because I guess if you wanted to look at, like, if you would have to name like a controversial science aspect in Europe, you would say genetics. Whereas seemingly this is more the case
gene
editing, where this is more the case where it's more the case in the States to actually look at environmental sciences.
Right, that's true. But what is definitely also an issue in many states of the United States would be evolution scientists, and they don't look at that either. It could be an issue of wanting to have the survey not be too big. Anyways, these are the answers that we got.
So what would increase the trust in science
in general? So like on a population level, social engineering kind of way, I would think that the biggest problem that I see is that the quote-unquote skepticism or belief, maybe in some ways even scientism, that they are intertwined with political ideology. I think that is a big problem. The left is anti-gene editing in Germany, certainly, and anti-nuclear power and pro-renewable, they believe in climate change, whereas the right, they're more likely to not believe in climate change. Talking about the US in this case, in Germany, large parts of the right do actually believe in climate change. On the one hand, science being political is just because it's a human endeavor. Scientific results have implications for society in certain areas, so science is political. But I think it is a problem that how you identify politically as left-leaning or right-leaning should impact how you think about scientific facts and how you're more likely to justify, these scientists in that specific industry or that specific area are more likely to not tell us the truth because they want more money, whereas scientists who say something that is according to my needs and according to my ideology, they are more likely to be the honest ones. I think this is a big problem that is really hard to overcome because it's an innate bias, but it becomes solidified in political identity. And if it would be possible to soften that up, there are now people in the Green Party in Germany who say gene editing is actually a good thing, or it can be good. And at the same time, you need people on the right adopting opinions that are considered to be left simply because it's the scientific fact.
So you would say basically the differentiation between ideology and science would help to make science more trustworthy in Europe?
Yes, I think so.
Do you think that's the most important issue? I thought always like the most important issue to get more people to trust in science is to make more people understand science.
So in general, a lot of people don't go in depth into the scientific facts, but they still form opinions based on whatever information they do have. I don't think it makes sense to try and make everybody into a scientist and then they are convinced simply by the fact.
What makes you believe in plumbing, though?
What makes me believe in plumbing? Yeah. Well, it works. Somebody comes into my house and then I can take a shit and it all goes away.
Okay, fair enough. And I would say we have to attain some sort of level of that in science. So I have not a clue how plumbing works, basically. I have some conceptual views of that, like how this would work, but I couldn't repair my toilet or my water tap. But still, I'm pretty sure that plumbers do a pretty nice job of plumbing. And on top of that, I believe that plumbing is essential. So how can we disseminate the same kind of understanding for science? Is it really a receiver problem that we have to make everybody a scientist to understand science? Or is it a sending problem that we don't send the right messages? I mean, it's easy for plumbing because the person comes into your house and plumbing works, but maybe we have to make that more visible, that it works.
Yeah, but how do you do that? So we don't live in a society where science is hidden actively. I don't think so. And actually, you yourself. So that's why I was arguing in that way. You said you think that it's about getting the facts out.
Yeah, I'm trying to find what would be helpful. For example, why does the moon landing doesn't create a controversial in such a way as genetics? I think this is also due to the fact that you can see a bit of the moon landing everywhere, like Teflon pans, microwaves, etc. Like things that are like things of the daily consumption that are directly linked to this scientific project. And maybe we have to like pinpoint more the things that actually happen in society based on the scientific progress that we made.
That depends on the topic, if that would work, I guess. I mean, they have been pointing out the things that are happening about climate for 40 years.
Yeah, I thought more about like more sellable positive things.
But you have to accept climate change is happening and it's terrible before you think that creating new technologies that avoid carbon dioxide is a positive thing.
But I think those are sellable. If you say, I'm part of the scientists that changed traffic, electrify traffic, but this is a sellable, graspable part of science. If you want to raise the awareness of science or the trust into science, you have to more pinpoint things that people get out of science. Like that your camera is able to recognize faces is due to the fact that we learned more about object recognition in neuronal studies and then could transfer them to computer algorithms that are now able to learn a lot of things. And maybe this is like the approach that science advocacy should take. Make it more about the things that you can see.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously, it needs to be something like this. But, I mean, if you look at artificial intelligence, it has pros and cons, right? And some people want to see the cons more than the pros, and other people want to see the pros more than the cons.
I think this is not that important for the process itself. Like so if you look at the trust in science as a process in society, everything has pros and cons, but you have to, I think most people don't even know what scientific things are researched.
But is that due to lack of existing information, or is it because they don't care? So my approach is to ignore that part, because you can't do anything about it. You can't force people to watch your show or listen to your podcast or read the articles you think they should be reading. What you should do is create your science communication in a way that they could understand it if they came across it, and then make it interesting to the people who are already interested. And then, if you're really good, you'll make it to that border between people who are kind of interested and people who are not interested, and then you can maybe move the border a bit, or the frontier. This is how I think about this. I don't think you can go to people who have decided not to believe you or who are decidedly not interested.
So we need more trust so that we get more funding to do more science.
It's not just about funding, right? I mean, yes, I said funding, but it's also about we need more trust so that politicians can listen to us more closely because their electorate is listening to us. I am convinced that a major problem is that identities often dictate which scientific facts people are comfortable accepting. Many science communicators are providing facts nicely to lay audiences and point out that science works. But they only reach those who are already open. When the science interferes with people's identities, interests, and convictions, and those are the people who we want to convince, getting their attention is a major challenge. In a different episode, during an interview with Deboki Chakravarti, she points out how she was able to reach her audience on YouTube who didn't know her as a scientist, but as a book lover. Other examples are communicators like Professor Catherine Hayhoe or Professor Amanda Glaze, who talk about climate change and evolution, respectively, from within conservative Christian communities. This is not to say that without such ties your science communication was useless. The more accessible you make science, the more likely you can reach some of the hard cases that otherwise could not be reached at all. Also, repetition works. The more often an opinion is heard, the more likely you are to accept it as valid. Political populism works like this. Why not use this to our advantage too, and push scientifically informed opinions into the public as much as possible? Please visit our website www.scienceforprogress.eu, where you'll find summaries of this and all the other episodes, including links for further reading. There is also a link that will take you to the complete conversation that is available to our supporters on Patreon. Would you like to suggest a topic to talk about in the near future? You can send me a message on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram @SciForProgress. Direct messages are open. Or through email info@scienceforprogress.eu. I thank you very much for listening. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, listener.